right, thank you guys. It's great to be here. Thank you, Jack, for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Awesome to have this opportunity to present to everybody. My name is Allison Donnelly. I'm the Director of Commercial Operations at Tufin Software. We're a network security policy company. This morning, we're going to talk about sales qualification versus sales methodology, two of my favorite topics, actually. Why reinvent your sales methodology strategy, and then selecting a sales methodology, and then we'll do a little Q&A. So here's a little bit about me. I've been in software for over 10 years in both sales operations and sales enablement capacities. I'm a firm believer that they really go hand in hand. I think that sales enablement is truly just getting started and on the upward tick, even though it's been around for a while. I really believe that this is like the next wave of the future for sales enablement. I've implemented many LMS, sales readiness platforms, sales processes, sales methodologies in my last 3 roles. I'm extremely passionate about sales methodology. Even though now I'm in an operations role, still love sales methodology, ingrain it in everything that I do. And then I'm also a certified facilitator by Force Management in Command of the Message. I don't know if you're familiar with Command of the Message. There's Command of the Sale, Command of the Message. It's my jam. So who here uses MEDPIC as their sales methodology? Okay, that's a trick question. Because guess what? It's not a methodology. So it's a great tool. MEDPIC's amazing, right? Love it. Implemented it everywhere. But it's really not a methodology simply because it's tied to sales stages directly, right? So at each sales stage, you have a M, or you have an economic buyer, you have a decision process, etc. So really, sales qualification is the science of sales, right? It's a step in the sales process that determines whether the customer is a fit for your products and services. It's the stages, milestones, and steps that the sales team follows to take a buyer on the buying journey. So some examples of sales qualification: MEDPIC, BANT. I'm sure everybody's familiar with BANT, right? Budget, authority, need, timing. It's great for SDRs. And then something called Scotsman. I don't know who's familiar with Scotsman. It's really big over in the UK. So then we've got your sales methodology, right? It's the art of sales. Methodology is really just the bigger philosophy, set of practices that informs and ties to the sales process, how it's built and conducted. It's more philosophical, strategic, and conversational. So some examples of sales methodologies are Challenger, Spin, Sandler, Command of the Message. I mean, there's just so many. Who's using sales methodology right now with their companies? What are you using? Sandler? Yeah. Anybody using Command of the Message? All right.
We just went through the program, like introducing it to our sales org.
Yeah, awesome. It's good stuff. I'm a fan, by the way, of any sales methodology. I think it's necessary. I'm a little biased to Command of the Message, honestly, because I'm certified in it, but I'm a big fan. So then these guys work together, right? You have your sales qualification tool, MEDPIC, but alone that's not really enough. You got to have both, because sales process plus sales methodology together equals success, right? So why reinvent your sales methodology strategy? What is a compelling event to start looking at your sales methodology, and why you should start thinking about reinventing it, right? You have a process in place, MEDPIC, BANT, whatever your qualification is, but it's not really truly a methodology, okay? Low adoption with your current methodology, sales doesn't buy in. I returned to my previous company after being in another company for 6 months, and they adopted Challenger sale early in last year. 0 follow-through, 0. No follow-through. They rolled it out, spent tons of money before I got there, tons of money, no follow-through, nothing from executive leadership, just nothing. They used MEDPIC too, but didn't have any clue how to integrate the two, right? And so it just fell short, right? So low adoption, maybe it's time to start looking at something else. Both your sales process and sales methodology exist, but they aren't integrated. Again, going back to the previous slide, right? Together they make success. It's been implemented, has some adoption, but maybe not right fit for the business. Because not every methodology is a right fit for your company, right? It's really important to take a look at that. Oopsie, sorry. Your low sales performance, despite your enablement efforts and process enforcement. Look, we as enablement professionals don't solve all the world's problems, right? We are simply a catalyst to help our salespeople grow and be successful. If they fight back and you don't have leadership buy-in, which is so important, I always say it falls top down. If you don't have your CEO, CRO, VP of sales engaged and buy-in, it's a problem. And that's going to lead to low sales performance, despite your efforts. So that's the truth. And then your company's growing quickly, and there's a need for a more unified approach. So maybe you have spin, or you have like a lower, quick, highly transactional kind of methodology, but your company is growing very quickly and you need to reevaluate for growth, which is happening a lot now. So taking a look at choosing the best methodology for your organization, okay? There's so many of them. These just represent a few. You've got spin. Is everybody familiar with spin? Spin's kind of old school, but you got Challenger, got Sandler, right? Solution selling, and then you have command of the message, right? So starting with spin focuses on 4 basic questions, right? With the objective of getting to the core of the problem quickly. Your Challenger sales is about challenging your prospect, taking over, and rational drowning. Then you've got your Sandler. Sandler it's both equals who are equally invested and partnered. Your solution selling, it's all about the value. And then your command of the message is all about the value framework and the value-based conversation, right? But at the end of the day, who is this, whatever sales methodology you use, who's really most important? Your customer, right? It all leads back to the customer. It doesn't matter what you're using, it's all about the customer. So, selecting a sales methodology, and this is where I'm gonna spend most of my time because I think this is super important. It seems like a lot of people are using sales methodology, which is great. So, most important, start with the why. Why do you need to implement something? What's going on? What problem are you trying to solve for? What do you want to achieve? How can your sales methodology help? What's your strategy? Product. Is your product or service easy to use and understand? Or does it require more education, a more complex sell? Is it how do you want to interact with your customers? Highly transactional? Or do you want to be a consultant, a partner? And then evaluate your sales process, right? How long is your sales cycle? Do you actually have a qualification tool? Look at your sales cycle. Understand what your customers respond to. Again, do they want to be consulted to? Do they want to be sold to? Do they want to go onto a portal and buy? Or do they actually want to talk to you and ask questions and ask your and get your expertise? I think that customers, regardless, they want a partner, whether they know it or not, right? So whether they're transactional or not, they still have a need, they still have a pain. There's a reason that they're looking for something, right? So understanding what your customer responds to is really important. And finally, you have to have buy-in from your go-to-market team. If you don't have buy-in from your go-to-market team, you have nothing, right? So when you're looking at a sales methodology, you have to shop it internally. I'll tell you about the process that we went through for Command of the Message, and those of you who maybe who know Command of the Message. Command of the Message, it's about a 4 to 5 month process from time you do a deal with them to the time that you roll it out. Here's why. In that process, you're doing customer interviews, internal rep interviews, you're doing workshops. We spent 6 hours a day for 5 days with product marketing, customer success, sales leadership, CEO, sales engineering. All of these groups came together and spent 6 hours a day for 5 days going through and building out our value framework, which is what is the principle of Command of the Message. And we had buy-in, and they challenged, they asked questions, some of them didn't like it, but it was a great conversation because you got to hear how people had questions. You know, it was great. It was a great experience. At my previous company, 2 companies ago actually, we rolled it out. I wasn't part of that process. I kind of came in later, but to go through that, going and getting your go-to-market team to buy in, and guess who owns that? Sales enablement owns that, right? Along with your sales leadership. You have to have your sales leadership on board, but it's truly a partnership. So that's like super important. So in talking about selecting a sales methodology, as I said, I gave an example of the company I was at that we implemented Challenger Sale and did nothing with it. They didn't hit their number for 2 years. 2 years. Came in at 53% in Q3. Okay, 53%. Didn't follow MedPick. As hard as I tried, I did tutorials on it, I did lunch and learns on it, suggested building it into Salesforce, which I have it built into Salesforce now, and boy does it work. I highly recommend too with MedPick, weighting it. So for each thing, weighting it and assigning bigger weights to economic buyer, pain, and champion. Those are really important. We also built in our Command of the Message fields into Salesforce. So they're going in there and they're talking about what's their before scenarios, what's their negative consequences, what's their after scenarios, what's their metrics, all of these things, how we do it better. So that again is integrating your sales process and your sales methodology, right? So when you're selecting a sales methodology, and not every methodology, I would not recommend Command of the Message to everybody, right? You also have to evaluate the size of your organization. If you have under 50 people, I wouldn't do something like a Command of the Message. I would do a Sandler or a Challenger, because you have to evaluate all of these things. It's a bigger picture, right? Is it a fit for my organization? 6 sales reps doesn't pair with Command of the Message, right? We have 160 plus. And plus it's very expensive, by the way. So you really have to take a look at that too, like what's gonna fit in my organization. I believe that at my last company, Challenger wasn't a good fit for them. There were 6 sales reps, 6. They probably could have used Spin or just stuck with MedPick, even though it's not a methodology. It's a qualification tool, and they weren't even using that. The company I was with a few years ago, I spent 6 years at Beyond Trust, which is a cybersecurity company in privileged access management space. We rolled out Command of the Message. And I know I keep saying Command of the Message because yes, this is my experience, but any sales methodology, insert name here, right? We rolled it out, and that year, that was in 2019, that year in the summer, in June of 2019, I held my first in-person new hire, where we did Command of the Message. One of the new guys was at 99% of his quota by December 31st in a 9-month sales cycle. So it works. The company I'm at now, we rolled it out last year at sales kickoff. Had buy-in, reps were all, we built it into Salesforce, reps were all in and everything, 30% year-over-year growth from 2021 to 2022. 30%. Simply by implementing a sales methodology that we didn't have the year before. MedPick was there. It was there. They were using it. It was weighted. Our VP of sales was doing deal reviews off of it. It's great. It's wonderful. Minute we implemented command of the message and we had buy-in, 30% year over year. Nothing changed. I mean, as a matter of fact, we went through an acquisition last year where we went from public to private equity. So imagine that. And still grew 30% using this. And everything I hear when I talk to my reps is, I need to understand the negative consequences. I need to understand their needs. I understand what their after scenarios are. We updated the value framework. So all these reasons why. So if your sales methodology is not working and you're not seeing growth year over year, it's time to stop and think about it and have a conversation, right? And as enablement professionals, we need to drive that conversation. Because sales leadership is sometimes oblivious. They're like, oh yeah, everything's great, blah, blah, blah. You know, selling, blah, blah, blah. They don't think about it, but it's super important. If you're gonna invest in something, invest with your whole heart, right? Whatever it is. Whatever works for your company, it doesn't matter. So I believe in it. I believe in sales methodology, hand in hand, again, with your sales process. Super important. Again, I've seen success and I've seen failure, right? Don't roll out something just because you think you should. Hey, we need a sales methodology, which is what I think my last company did. I think that's what they did. The EVP of sales, he knew somebody that did Challenger. So he said, hey, we don't have anything, let's just go get it. So they did it and spent probably hundreds of thousands of dollars on something that just fell flat. That led to 53% of quota, right? So don't do it just for the sake of doing it. So that's all I really have. I'm gonna open it up to questions. Would love to answer some questions for you. We talked about enablement, there you go. Anybody have questions? Yes?
I'm curious, what role did the sales managers play to reinforce that methodology? And what kind of accountability measures were there from the top down, bottom up?
Yep.
That sales manager involvement?
Yep. Yeah, so great question. Her question was, what role did sales managers play in enforcing the methodology, and how are salespeople held accountable? As I mentioned, we built it into Salesforce, and the VP of sales at the time, who's now our CRO, was very big on opportunity deal reviews. So they would actually do opportunity deal reviews based on command of the message fields being completed. And interestingly, and sales managers were held accountable down. There were coaching sessions. As a matter of fact, we did coaching sessions with Force Management. So they do opportunity coaching and they offer that. So again, top down, right? Our CRO to the VPs of sales, to the sales managers, to the reps. If you ingrain it, they have no choice but to become accountable, right? And that's why we had the growth. So our now CRO would do opportunity deal reviews with command of the message. And that's actually what Force Management recommends, is building it into Salesforce, right? So you have it tied. And I can tell you that those individuals, those sales guys that do complete those fields are our top selling reps. The one guy who was so detailed was 323% of his quota last year. So, okay, for reps focused on retention, do you ever see resistance on the understanding they need to adopt sales methodology? If so, how do you get around that? Oh, great question. There's a guy in my sales org, his name's Bill G. I'll just leave it, Bill G. Bill is amazing. He's been in sales forever, probably longer than I've been around. And he was so resistant. Part of the command of the message rollout is role playing. So everybody fell in line. Let's role play, you do it as part of the training. He decided that instead of doing a role play, he'd go ahead and just talk about how he networks within his customers. I didn't do the assignment, I'm just gonna talk about how I network within my customers and the relationship I have. Because I've been doing this a long time. I don't need you to tell me how to do my job. Who's heard that before? Oh yeah. It's my favorite. I don't need to tell you to tell me how I do my job. He didn't understand why we were doing this, right? Or he didn't want to understand why we were doing this. And we went and did that role play. Well, guess what? His VP of sales made him do another session with me and him over again. And we recorded it, put it into high spot for everyone to see. So that's how we got around that. And how many people do you think resisted since then? No. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's pretty hardcore, right? But, and everybody has a Bill G. Everybody has a Bill G, but I think just spending time with them, I'm very much about call me if you have a problem. Let's role play together. You know, before his role play, his second role play, he sat with me for an hour and we walked through it together and he said, what do you think I should do here? What do you think I should say here? So simply by offering myself for an hour to help him walk through it, he turned, right? So as enablement professionals, we need to do that as well, right? Be there to align with them one-on-one. So now Bill G's on board and annoying me in different ways. Actually, he just IM'd me and said that a customer of his wants to buy a new product and they have money for Viagra. That was very much a typo. So anyway, I said, Viagra, really? He said, oops, yeah. How do you deal with different personas between a process and methodology, for example, med picking and command the message? Great question. So personas is a big deal, right? So when you do command of the message, you actually, in your value framework, you actually build out different lines of questioning and discovery based on your persona. So we have our role personas as like VP of Network Security, VP of IT, VP of IT Ops, CISO, CIO, because we're a security company. And each of those roles has a different line of questioning that we build in to MedPick and to command of the message. And it's all in this value framework. So for me, so at my last company, they had no buyer personas whatsoever. And again, they were doing challenger sale. So I asked marketing, I said, hey, do we have any buyer personas? They're like, no, but if you want to do some, we'd be happy to use it in our customer deck. That's not my job, dude, but okay, I'll do it. And I aligned them to MedPick because nobody was adopting challenger, right? So I aligned them to MedPick. So personas and differentiating how to talk to them is really important, right? Because part of command of the message is attaching to the biggest problem, which means you're going up the chain, and how do you talk to a VP versus a CISO versus a CIO, right? How do you identify the economic buyer? Again, they're not separate. They're this, right? Hopefully that answered the question. When would you recommend developing an in-house methodology rather than buying one? Depends. Do you have somebody that knows more than everybody else in the world? No, I mean, if you're a smaller organization, you know, like I said, 6 sales reps, probably something in-house. I would even actually not even develop a methodology necessarily, but an enforcement of like a MedPick, or even look at like something lower level like Spin, which is more transactional. In-house, that's a good question. Whatever works. I'll say that. If it's something that's going to increase your sales, do it. Right? We had a saying at Beyond Trust, don't buy it, build it. So our Salesforce was custom built. We had a tremendous Salesforce architecture team, but we wouldn't go get external programs or things like that. We would build it. So if you're a small enough business and you want something, that's when I would recommend doing something in-house. And you can, by the way, there are companies that intertwine a little bit of all of these things, right? There are companies that have Sandler, a little bit of Sandler, a little bit of Challenger with rational drowning, a little bit of spin, a little bit of value selling, right? A solution selling. There's no right or wrong answer, FYI. There's no one that's better than the other. It's all about what's right for you and your company. How did you leverage both MEDPIC and Command of the Message in Salesforce? Included fields for both, yeah. So we included fields for both. So our MEDPIC was built in, like I said, with weighted. And actually we used Clary for forecasting. And we would actually pull that MEDPIC score into Clary so that when we're doing our forecast calls, the leadership could see like, okay, we had a total of 11 was our points. Required fields, again, were economic buyer, champion, and pain. And we would again pull it in and look at our forecast call. They would look at the forecast and go, okay, well you have this forecast for this quarter, but it's a MEDPIC score of 5 and you don't know who the economic buyer is. Isn't that a problem? You're gonna have to go reevaluate that and move that out of this quarter, right? And then command the message built in there as well so we could capture negative consequences, before scenarios, et cetera. We didn't really weight those. It was more of just for opportunity reviews and coaching calls. Very beneficial. Let's see. What methodology and qualification do you recommend for startups that are hiring their first rep and remain as a small team, less than 10 for a while? MEDPIC. MEDPIC's good for everything. Actually, maybe even BANT. BANT would be a good starter if you have one sales rep, budget authority, need timing. Very simple, build that into Salesforce too. For methodology, I don't know that I would even go there yet with one rep. I'd wait. I mean, how long has the startup been in business?
You don't know what works at that point.
You don't know what works at that point. It's not worth building, that's right. That's where you go like, okay, in-house, how can we combine? I know a little bit about Command of the Message, I know a little bit about Sandler, I know a little bit about Spin. It's like hey, let's try these things, mishmash, see what happens. But I think qualification, MEDPIC, BANT, whatever, applies anywhere. Have you taken a look at value selling? It's more of a methodology or more like a framework like MEDPIC. So the principle of Command of the Message is value selling, right? It's all about a value framework and the value-based conversation. So I think they're all value selling. You're always selling value of your products. You're always leading with value and what you can bring to the table. And another big thing of Command of the Message is earning the right to talk about your products, right? So some of them go right out there, like Challenger goes and uses a relevant story, right? Well, we're seeing other customers in this industry do X, Y, and Z. I don't love that approach, but it works for Challenger. But it's still all about value selling, right? About selling value of your product and not leading with pricing. Because then you're just opening the door to them to challenge you on price. And you should never lose to price, ever. Yes?
When you're in a larger organization and you have a singular methodology but scattered qualification processes, is there a recommendation or a secret sauce for these two or three kind of work together well and can be kind of smattered around an organization?
I believe in consistency.
Yeah.
And I realize that at a global company, there are differences in sales processes and sales cycles between EMEA, APAC, and North America. But at the end of the day, qualification is qualification. And I believe in consistency. And if you don't operate on a consistent basis, you don't get the same results, right? And that starts at the top, like I said. So to answer your question, I don't believe in that mishmash just because you're a global organization. Pick one, stick with it. When it comes to qualification. When it comes to methodology, like I said, mishmash is okay depending on your organization, right? But when it comes to qualification, I believe in consistency. So that's just my opinion, though. Yes?
I wasn't here for the first 5 minutes, so you can maybe address this, but I think it's helpful to distinguish the
Yes.
Like this challengers and the SAM,
Mhm.
looking at message or methodologies, medic and ban and spin are not methodologies. They are field qualification techniques.
Correct. So the gentleman asked about the difference between methodology and qualification, and did I cover that? Yeah, so in the first couple slides, I talked about how really methodology is the science of the sale and aligns to the process and the customer journey, whereas where methodology is the art of the sale, and it's really a philosophical and a strategic approach, right? So looks like I'm out of time, but thank you, everybody. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any other questions. I don't know everything, but I've been around a little while. Always open to learning more from all of you. Happy to share my experience and my stories as well. So thank you. Appreciate it.